Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, let me introduce myself first. My name is Miftahul Jannah. I'm from TBI2 and now I would like to explain about types of qualitative research. So, there are a of the most common approach to qualitative research include which are basic qualitative research or interpretative research, case study research, content analysis, ethnographic research, ground theory research, historical research, narrative research, and the last is phenomenological research. So, as we know that basic for the first types of qualitative research, I will explain about basic qualitative research. So, basic qualitative research has its roots in the social science and describes and interprets a phenomenon or process, seeks to understand participants' point of view. This to identifies recurrent patterns or themes can be based on a variety of disciplinary lens. We use a variety of data collection techniques. Basic qualitative studies, also called basic interpretative studies by some, provide rich descriptive accounts to target to understanding a phenomenon, a process, or a particular point of view from the perspective of those involved. And these studies are the most common qualitative studies and are used in a variety of disciplines, including education. They may use a variety of data collection techniques. So these studies are the most common qualitative studies and are used in a variety of disciplines, including education. They may use a variety of data collection techniques, including interviews or observations, as well as review documents, and they may draw from diverse theoretical orientations. For data analysis, typically involves categorization and development of patterns of themes, interpreted by the researcher through his or her own disciplinary lens. And to reiterate, the basic goal of interpretive studies is to understand the meaning people make of their experience, assuming that people create their own meanings as they interact with the world around them, and also start from a frame of knowledge as a social construction. For the next is case studies. So, case studies has multidisciplinary roots, include business, law, medicine, and its focus on a single unit produce an in-depth description is assured in real life and use multiple data collection techniques, and it provides rich holistic description of context and issue. Time spent examining the unit is important. So the unit can be an individual and a group, site, class, policy, a program, and a process, an institution, or a community. It's a single occurrence of something that the researcher is interested in examining. So case studies can answer descriptive questions or what happened or attempt to explain why something happened by looking at a process. So they are particularistic. Uh, it's focused on a particular phenomenon, situation, or event. For a descriptive, it's providing as an end result a rich description, and heuristic focus on providing new insights. So the researcher believes that something can be learned on this specific case. As we know that case studies need be limited to the study individuals. Case studies are made of communities, institutions, and groups of individuals. And there are three types of case studies, which are intrinsic case study, instrumental case study, and collective case study. So next is content analysis. So content analysis has its roots in communication studies. Use analysis of written or visual materials, and it describes the characteristics of the materials, can be quantitative and qualitative. So the purpose of content analysis are identify bias, prejudice, or propaganda in textbooks. For example, a researcher might analyze high school history texts in a particular school district to determine how often women are mentioned and how much discussion is given in each mention. Second is to analyze types of errors in students' writings. For example, you could look at students' written work to classify spelling or grammatical errors and their nature and frequency. The third is to describe prevailing practice. For example, you could identify the entrance requirements of Big Ten universities by analyzing their bulletins. And fourth is to discover the level of difficulty of material in textbooks or other publications. For example, you could ask, what is the vocabulary level of the third grade social studies textbooks in this district? And to discover the relative importance of or interest in certain topics. For example, you might analyze popular educational research textbooks to see the coverage given to qualitative research and change in the coverage over time. The next is ethnographic studies. Ethnographic studies has its roots in anthropology studies, the naturally occurring behavior of a group, and its focus on culture and societal behavior, and describes beliefs, values, and attitudes of a group. Observation is the primary data collection tool. Immersion in the site is important, provides a holistic description of context and cultural themes. And the term of ethnography is used to refer to the work of studying a culture and the end product to research. Based on Spradley in 1980, he identified the sequence of steps comprising the methodology of ethnographic research, which are selecting an ethnographic project, asking ethnographic questions, collecting ethnographic data, making ethnographic record, and analyzing ethnographic data, and the last is writing the ethnography. The next is ground theory studies. So, ground theory has its roots sociology. Its goal is to inductively build a theory about a practice or phenomenon using interviews and observation as the primary data collection tools. So, ground theory studies of a sociological nature have focused on victims of Alzheimer's disease and how families accommodate to the different stage. Drug addiction in women, chronic illness, alcoholism, eating disorders, pain management, and how families make decisions about placing members in a nursing home, and so on. A grand theory study in education might focus on mainstreaming, mentoring new teachers, integrating minorities in private prep schools, classroom discipline, and how many other topics. In education, an example of grand theory, professional school, counselor identity. The research sought to identify counselors' self-conceptualizations or personal guidelines that provide a framework for carrying out their professional roles. The theory developed through the study describes the content, condition, and phase for a process called the blending of influences. Okay, the next is historical studies. Historical studies are oriented to the past rather than to be present, and this use different data collection methods from those used in other qualitative approach. So historical research is included in qualitative research because of the emphasis on interpretation and its use of non-numeric data. So historical research is the attempt to establish facts and arrive at conclusions concerning to the past. The next is narrative research. So narrative research has its roots in different humanities disciplines and focus on stories or spoken or written and told by individuals about their lives. The researcher emphasized sequence and chronology and collaborative restoring process. The key question is, what is the story and its meaning as told to his person's experience? So the researcher seeks to understand the lived experience of an individual or small group. Narrative can be any text or research. Narrative research provides accounts of human experience by collecting and analyzing stories about lives. The stories are accounts of events and actions chronologically connect, and narrative research evolved from the first disciplines in the humanities such as literature, art, and film, as well as from disciplines such as psychology and sociology. Narrative research is not designed to be an historical record, but rather it's designed to understand the perspective of the storyteller in the context of his or her life. So narrative analysis is categorized based on who was the author, whose perspective is present, whether there is one or more narrative, the scope of the work of the researcher. How these characteristics play out help us to identify the narrative analysis as an autobiography, biography, personal narrative, life story, life narrative, testimonial, or oral history. For the last is phenomenological research. So phenomenological research is designed to describe is the study to design or describe and interpret an experience by determining the meaning of the experience as perceived by the people who have participated in it. What is the experience of an activity or concept from the perspective of particular participants? That is the key question in phenomenology, rooted in philosophy and psychology. The assumption is that there are many ways of interpreting of the same experience, and that the meaning of the experience to each person is what constitutes reality. So this belief is characteristic of all qualitative studies, but the element that distinguish phenomenology from other qualitative approach is that the subjective experience is the center of the inquiry. So phenomenology address question about common human experience. Phenomenological researcher who we ask to study, for example, the integration. This experience means the parties involved, the special needs children, other students, and the teacher. Whether or not the integration plan is working, not important issue. What matters is how the student and teacher experience it. The example of topics that have been studied by phenomenological researchers are the meaning of aging, how children think about the environment, math, anxiety, the experience of insomnia, forgiveness and reconciliation, shame, chronic pain, disappointment in teacher-student relationship, daydreaming, learn lines, the experience of rereading, the experience of studying a foreign language. I think that's all. So sorry for my mistakes. There are many mistakes. So thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.